So I had said I wanted to at least do some short videos covering the rest of the games coming out in 2023 before I'm essentially quitting slash temporarily pausing next year. And I've gotten kind of behind on that, so let's just quickly go over the ones I haven't covered. The first game to talk about is Pikmin 4, but before I actually talk about that, I want to say that if you had shown me all of the games that were going to come out in 2023 that I would play, because obviously some of these were not revealed until well into 2023, but if you had shown me a list before the year started, then I probably would have predicted my list would look something like this, where Xenoblade 3 is a stand-in for its Future Redeemed DLC campaign. Now, Tears of the Kingdom, I am making a pretty big video on, and that is hard to find motivation to work on because it is so huge, but I will, of course, eventually get over this, and Tears of the Kingdom is Game of the Year, obviously. I'm not going to try and hide that. But for the rest of these games, I think my prediction probably would have been something like this. I love Mario, and this is a mainline Mario game, obviously. I would assume it would be second place. I figured I would probably like Metroid Prime more than Kirby's Return to Dreamland before playing the two, simply because I've heard so much praise about this game. And yes, I've heard praise about this game, but it is probably a much simpler game than I would imagine would have imagined Metroid Prime to be. Xenoblade 3 would be, or Future Redeemed would be back here simply because it's a shorter DLC campaign. Super Mario RPG behind that, just because if I'm comparing the DLC or the RPGs, I'm probably going to prefer Xenoblade between the two. WarioWare is at the end there, simply because it's a much more simple game compared to the rest of these. But of course, the main one I want to talk about, and the reason I wanted to do this in the first place, showing you my predictions, is to talk about Pikmin 4. So before adding any of these new games I'm going to discuss today, this is basically the list we had so far, the official list, because I was surprised to find that Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe I actually liked a bit more than Metroid Prime. These two are pretty close for me, but I did decide to put Metroid ahead simply because it has some nice multiplayer offerings. I feel like there's more replayability for this game, whereas this is just, single player experience. And then Future Redeemed was so good even as a shorter DLC campaign that it just blew both of those out of the water. And honestly, a Xenoblade DLC campaign is still probably longer, as long, if not longer, than either of those two games. And Tears of the Kingdom, although I haven't done my big video on it yet, is obviously Game of the Year. It's a Zelda game. Do I even need to go over that? But when placing Pikmin 4, I expected it to be right about here. My reason for thinking that is that Pikmin 3 Deluxe didn't really do much for me, and that's the only Pikmin game I played. Now, I liked it. I thought it was a pretty fun game, of course, but I didn't quite get the hype for Pikmin after playing it. I kind of felt like a lot of it was geared towards the extra little modes you have, little challenges and all of that, and I'm the kind of player who often just goes through a campaign and is done with it, and Pikmin 3 wasn't really built for players who would play the game that way. So while I was of course excited for Pikmin 4, I didn't really have any high expectations going into it. I kind of expected it to be right around Pikmin 3, just cute little experience that I enjoy and doesn't really leave too much of an impression on me. Now that I've played it, Pikmin 4 is leagues better than Pikmin 3 in my opinion. Like, it's not even close. So Pikmin 3, I think, put a lot of emphasis on splitting up your 3 different captains, and all the captains were basically the same, so your strategy was just in like, which Pikmin would you send with which captain? And you could carry a bunch of different types in the field, I believe. You could do way more than 3 if you wanted. And so that was the main strategy of that game. Pikmin 4 kinda dials it back a bit in that you only have 2 captains, but now the captains have different abilities because you have your player character and you have Oatchi. Sorry, I still want to call him Oachi, but it's pronounced Ochi. So after unlocking it, you get a item called a charging horn, at least I think that's what it's called, that allows you to charge a single type of Pikmin towards an obstacle or enemy or whatever. So for example, if there's an enemy that has fire, that can spit fire, you can charge all of your red Pikmin at it without risking any of your other Pikmin types. But you can only do that with the player character. Ochi, on the other hand, has a charging move where he will charge up and strike the enemy and launch all of your Pikmin at it. But of course, that's going to launch every single Pikmin you have, so you might be putting blue Pikmin on an enemy that has fire, which could be very dangerous for them, for example. Ochi can also jump, and you can get the player character over obstacles you have to jump over by riding on Ochi. So there's a lot of planning out, like, when do I want to split up Ochi to go do something else? Where should I put Ochi? And where should I put the player character so they can use their unique different skills? And when do I want to have the player character and Ochi traveling together? I spent probably most of my playthrough with the two together so that I could travel as one swarm, and then I could easily hop off Ochi, use the charging horn ability, and then hop back on him. So that was probably how I played most of the game, but it's fun trying to figure out how to strategize when to split them up and when to have them together. I think the biggest reason I like this game so much more than Pikmin 3 is the caves. In Pikmin 3, you're on a time limit pretty much the entire playthrough, and it just depends, how much can you get done in each day. There's also a limit to the number of days you can use. Now, I don't think I got very close to that limit, so it's not a big deal, but it does put a set clock on how much time you can spend. You're not allowed to spend too much time or you completely fill the entire game, and you have to go back several days in order to be able to complete it. Pikmin 4, it does not have that feature. There is of course a daily time limit, but the number of days does not matter. The number of nights does not matter either. And inside of caves, there's basically no time limit. The clock is moving forward, but if you spend, it's much slower moving than on the surface. And if you spend so much time in there that it reaches the end of the day, it's just going to pause during the 10 seconds from the end of the day, so that when you hop out, whether you spent an hour in there near the end of the day or 7 hours in there ridiculously, when you hop out, you're still going to have 10 seconds of the day left. You're not going to immediately lose because you spent too much time in the cave. And these caves have much more interesting obstacles and puzzles you have to do compared to the surface or anything on the surface in Pikmin 3. For example, most boss fights are inside caves. Sometimes you might have to clear out a certain number of enemies to get to the next level. Sometimes there are hidden treasures or hidden crewmates within the caves that you have to collect. And as you collect crewmates, your base grows and you get more options for things to do. You unlock like the Piklopedia and ways to upgrade Ochi and treasure guide. You get a whole bunch of side quests. There's a whole lot that rescuing crewmates unlocks for you, so you get a steady stream of new content as you're clearing out these caves. My only real big nitpick with the game is the lock-on feature, the auto lock-on feature. When you're aiming for enemies, you'll pretty much automatically lock on to anything your cursor hovers over, and you're no longer controlling completely with motion control like you could in Pikmin 3 Deluxe. You're controlling mainly with your control stick, and you only use motion control while you are specifically aiming at something or pressing B to use your whistle, for example. You can't just constantly move the controller to aim the reticle. And because of this, you'll automatically lock onto enemies and other objects as you get close to them. The one issue with this is when there are like a bunch of enemies together or a bunch of objects together, you will basically have to kind of mash to get your Pikmin to go near them or go to the right one. Sometimes I'll like charge my Pikmin towards a group of objects and like 3 will latch onto one and 4 will latch onto the other, so I don't pick up anything I'm trying to pick up, and that can be a bit annoying. That's really the only major nitpick I have, though. The only other thing I wasn't really fond of was the whole digging feature. Not in general, but there are certain treasures, only in like the first 2 areas too, I think, where you have to basically just dig in a random spot to find them, and the only way to know they're there is with the treasure gauge. I purposefully avoided the treasure gauge for a bit because I didn't really think it would be important to find treasure, but it turns out there are ones that are just hidden underground and you just have to have the gauge on and notice it beeping in order to get those. But there are only like a few of those, like maybe 4, and that's it, so it's not a major complaint at all. I don't want to get deep into spoilers, but I will say what really amazed me is the amount of content in this game. Like, this feels like 3 Pikmin 3s put together, and 3 better games than Pikmin 3 put together at that. Like, even after the credits roll, there's so much to do, and I would argue, I think most people would argue, that the post-game is even better than the main game, which is already fantastic. I 100%ed every area of this game, and I didn't even go over night missions. Those are basically just a combat-focused thing where they're kind of like raid modes in other games, kind of like Salmon Run in Splatoon, where you are trying to protect a single base or maybe 2 bases, and the enemies are attacking it. You just have to fend them off until the time limit expires. So instead of trying to do as much as possible within the time limit, you're trying to basically survive until the time limit ends. You have the Dandori battles where you and another character are basically competing to see how much you can collect and how many enemies you can beat within a certain time limit. Then you have I don't remember what they're called, but the other time challenges where you are inside a cave and you have to collect a certain amount of treasure in order to pass the trial. And there's even something you unlock in the post-game that I'm not going to spoil, but I'm just going to say it seems really big. I didn't even get around to doing it, but from what I've seen, it seems like it is a pretty time-consuming mode that you could sink plenty of hours into. And by the time I unlocked it, I just had to move on to Mario Wonder. So Pikmin 4 is not going to go at the end of the list. Pikmin 4 is my second favorite game I have played this year. It is genuinely one of the best games Nintendo has produced. So as shocking as it is, this is where Pikmin 4 lands. I never would have predicted that I would enjoy this game this much, but this basically helped me understand the Pikmin hype. I get why people like Arlo get so excited for this series now. Well, the next game that released was Mario Wonder. I actually had to wait a bit to play that game because I promised a friend of mine that we would play through the entire thing online together. And so while I was waiting for them to get the game, I played WarioWare Move It. Now, if you saw where I reviewed Get It Together, you know, this is basically the WarioWare game I wanted. I liked Get It Together. It was a cool experiment for the series, I believe, having like different move sets that you play the same microgames with. However, I really wanted the Switch to take advantage of the Joy-Con's weird and complicated mechanics. They have motion control in them, they have that IR camera, they have HD Rumble, and I wanted a game that would actually take advantage of that because that's what WarioWare does best. I think WarioWare is one of the best series for taking advantage of weird gimmicks. People often complain about motion controls, but I feel that WarioWare is one of the series that actually justifies it and shows what sorts of unique experiences you can create with it. Smooth Moves was my favorite WarioWare game, and I wanted to see a sequel to it in a similar vein that would take use of the Switch's technology just as Smooth Moves made use of Wii's. And that's basically what WarioWare Move It is. It's basically a direct sequel to Smooth Moves, only instead of using one motion controller, now you're using two. And it doesn't really use HD Rumble, at least not in any like meaningful way, from what I remember or can tell, I should say. But it does use the IR sensor for some of those games too, and it also makes use of both motion controls and button controls in certain micro games. My one complaint about this game is, as it is a motion controlled game, it does sometimes misread inputs, and I find especially the IR sensor is not always great at detecting like what number you're holding up during the mini game where you're supposed to hold up a number to say like how many strawberries or candles are on a cake. So that's the one thing that I have an issue with, but it does usually tend to read your motions well. Sometimes you have to try out a micro game a few times to figure out what motion you're supposed to do, but I feel like most of them are actually pretty obvious. Most of them I play for the first time and I know exactly what I should be doing, even with the button control ones. My other complaint about WarioWare Move It is, of course, you have 9-volt section, and that is always the best part of every WarioWare game because he has a whole bunch of Nintendo micro games, and it's always fun seeing what games get represented, what games, classic games that maybe have gotten passed over before, or how they represent new games, like Metroid Dread has one in this, and that's absolutely awesome. There's no Splatoon micro game. There's just not. And it hurts. We have a Mario 64 micro game as the boss, and that's really cool, but think of what they could do with a motion-controlled WarioWare micro game that's Splatoon-based. And they don't. But anyway, other than that, all the other 9-volt micro games are fantastic. And I love, most of the micro games in this in general. Of course, there are always a few stinkers when you have like hundreds of micro games, but for the most part, this one has some mostly bangers. And I only like 3 days ago got to finally try out the multiplayer mode. So you can play the story mode with 2 players, and that's interesting because you can you get certain micro games where it'll ask you to play together, but you also get ones where it'll say player 1 do this, then player 2 do this. And if one of you fails, you can tag in to save that life. So that's a pretty cool mechanic. I like that. If one person fails, it doesn't entirely cost you. You both have to fail on a micro game to fail a tag in. But the bigger multiplayer party mode is where the game really shines. The one game that I think requires 4 people is the Who's in Control show, and so you have 2 teams of 2 each, and at the start of a round, the Joy-Con of the player who's in control will buzz, so only they and their partner know that they're controlling the micro games. And the goal is the other team is going to watch them play the micro games, and the ones playing the micro games, they have to convince the other team that the wrong person is in control. They have to do things in as sync as possible that the other team can't tell who's controlling the micro games. And I think I'm pretty terrible at that one, but it was fun. I got to play that with my cousins. All the multiplayer stuff I got to play with my cousins, and yeah, those were super fun. There's a doctor one, which is a bit weird because it kind of feels like you can cheat the other players by not giving thumbs up, but it'll basically tell you do this goofy thing like keep open your mouth and do this micro game, or list as many black animals as you can while doing this micro game, and then you have to give thumbs up to signify that the player did it or not. But it's, you know, it's interesting. I think I don't think we were super big fans of that, but that's probably the worst one of the other four. There's Go the Distance, which is a pretty basic micro game fighting mode, where you're basically just seeing who can last the longest, who can do the most micro games. Sometimes you're doing them together, sometimes it'll go one at a time, and you just have to last longer than the other players. There's a mini board game which seems about as fair as Mario Party. I won like all 3 of the first micro games, and every space I landed on just hurt my score. I ended up losing to somebody else by 5 points when I was the one to make it to the goal. So perfectly captures the Mario Party spirit, and it's perfect. But the one that we got addicted to, and we played this like 10 plus times in that single day, was the Medusa one. And this one, in between micro games, you have to just basically just shake your your fists at the same time to run forward, to sprint forward, and you're trying to make it to Medusa. But Medusa will turn around, and when she does, you have to freeze or you'll turn to stone. You get 2 lives, and you really get 1 life that you can waste, and if you get frozen twice, you're done, you're out of the game. So you'll run for a bit, then a snake will pop up, and you'll all have to play a micro game at once, and you have to beat the micro game in order to progress. If you don't beat the micro game, you get stuck there until the next micro game. But the crazy twist is also, not only can she freeze you in between micro games, she can freeze you during micro games, and so you'll be in the middle of like something like the one where you have to shake to become seaweed so the shark doesn't see you, and you'll just have to pause suddenly or you'll be turned to stone and fail the micro game. That one can be genuinely hard even if you're good at the micro games in the first place. And yeah, we kept playing that one over and over, and I think pretty much everybody won once. Yeah, that one was super fun, and that's something I'm definitely looking forward to playing pretty much every time I play this game with friends now. Now, all that being said, WarioWare Move It is a great game, but it is much simpler than all of these games, and so it is going to go at the bottom of the list, not because it's bad, of course, but just because compared to these, it doesn't have quite as much going on, but I still absolutely love my time with it. I'm happy I bought it. Okay, so now we are on to Super Mario Bros. Wonder. I played through this, as I said, pretty much entirely online with a friend in that little online ghost mode. There were a few secrets and stuff I did find without them, but other than that, this was pretty much entirely a co-op experience. I'm going to start with my nitpicks just to get them out of the way. My first thing is that Yoshi is easy mode. It would be really cool to play as Yoshi that can use power-ups and that just controls the game normally. I mean, we've had like little Yoshis in the past. I don't see why they couldn't have made Yoshi control basically like the other characters but with a flutter jump. So it's a bit disappointing that he's easy mode, but at the same time I can kind of get it. It's nice to have that option for younger players who may not be as adept at platforming as the rest of us. It's a pretty small nitpick because I was perfectly happy to play the entire game as Daisy anyway. And the other thing is that you have the online ghost mode, and that is a good feature. Obviously, I played the entire game with it. The only thing about it is that rather than being able to interact directly with players now, you pretty much just pass through each other. And I'm a bit mixed on that. On one hand, you can't like mess each other up anymore. You can't accidentally jump on your friend's head and kill them that way. but it also kind of takes away some of the fun of being able to purposefully screw with each other, or being able to like jump and then throw your friend onto a higher cliff or something like that. So that is gone, and that is a bit disappointing, but I think this new mode also works pretty well. The way it works is that you don't have to be on the same screen, at least on the online mode, because you're not even necessarily playing the same version of the level. And that works well for the most part, but in auto-scrollers, there are times where you can get ahead of your friend or vice versa, and that is a bit awkward. Like sometimes you'll die and become a ghost and they're unable to save you because they are literally moving away from the left of the screen. They cannot get to the bottom left corner of the screen, and you're trying to meet them in the top right corner of the screen, but the screen is moving too fast for you to be able to meet each other. And I do kind of wish there was an option, at least in friend rooms, to play it like you would play it in local mode, where you do share the same screen. But it's also kind of nice that you can rush ahead of one another, that you don't have to be tied to each other at all times, because sometimes you do want to go ahead and find something, find a secret before they can, so that you can point it out to them, or you find a secret that they don't see and you want to check it out so that you can tell them about it later. So yeah, I'm a bit of a mixed bag on that, but overall I enjoyed it. I think it is usually preferable to be able to separate from your friend if need be. But as for the levels themselves, I 100% of this game entirely. I got every badge, I got every 10 flower coin, I got every standee, I beat every level, got the flagpole of every level, beat the super hard levels you unlock for 100%ing everything else. And the very final one cost me like 50 lives or so, 50 something lives. So yeah. You know what, I completely forgot, because they're that forgettable. The bosses in this game are lame. That's one more complaint. But to tell you the truth, it's not the biggest deal to me when the rest of the level design is this fantastic, and even the levels leading up to the bosses are still pretty dang good. And of course, the big gimmick of this game is the whole wonder effect. You bump into a wonder flower, some crazy effect starts, and you have to get a wonder seed before you beat the level in order to stop the effect. And they do some really fun things with this effect. A lot of really cool music-based things, for example. I think one of my favorites is there's the effect that turns you into a Goomba, and that basically turns the level into a stealth game where you have to avoid these Maw-Maws that are trying to eat you by hiding behind bushes whenever they get close. That's just one example of something I wouldn't have expected from a 2D Mario game, and there are a whole bunch of those. It's always fun finding out what surprising effect is going to trigger, especially when it's something they didn't show in the trailers, or when it's just an effect you wouldn't have expected from that level. The level design is already fantastic without the Wonder Flower, and so when you do grab one, it just amplifies it that much more. There's also the whole badge system, which is something I also wouldn't have really expected from a 2D Mario. Just, I guess, because we've been stuck with new Super Mario Bros. For so long, I don't really expect them to go in any way that will further complicate Mario's moveset, but I'm really glad they added that system. It is fun. I will admit, once you get the spin jump badge, that kind of breaks the game, and I feel like I abused a lot of the game with that. But it's also nice to have a badge like that that can kind of break the game and makes it less frustrating to get extra flower coins and all that when you're replaying levels. But it's also fun to experiment with the different types of badges you got. Like the Vine badge was super fun, or the wall jump badge, which allows you to go straight up a wall jump and basically jump off of it twice. Yeah, there are a whole bunch of fun badges and some badges that are basically just an inconvenience. And it's about trying to figure out how to get through a level with a handicap. Oh, and you know what? One thing I don't think a lot of people are going to talk about that I really want to mention is the world map. Most of the worlds are pretty straightforward. You're just kind of walking around, choosing levels. They're just areas where it opens up and you can walk in basically 360 degrees to pick levels. But there are a few little secrets hidden around the world map, and especially World 4 does some really fun things with its world map that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. So yeah, I think I'm gonna have to replay Mario World to see where this stacks up to it, because this is definitely in my top 2 of my 2D Mario platformers. I don't know whether I like it better than the World or whether this would take second place, but I have to do a full playthrough of World before I can decide that, and that's pretty high praise. Okay, now this is where it's hard to figure out where to rank it. I definitely like it more than Kirby's Return to Dreamland, but still, shockingly, not as much as Pikmin 4. But do I like it more or less than Future Redeemed? Man, I really love this game. I think I am still gonna put it behind Future Redeemed, like barely behind Future Redeemed, just because I genuinely enjoyed the story and catching up with the old characters that much. But like, this is still a top tier Mario game. Don't take this as an insult to this game, but rather as compliments to how much I love all of these games. Okay, now I am still in the middle of playing Mario RPG. In fact, I'm probably closer to the beginning than the end. I basically just got to Booster's Tower. I think the only thing I have to nitpick so far is usually I feel like in RPGs I play, there's a little bit of like a text blurb when people are speaking. Like you can just hear a little tone for their voice. For example, like when Sans is talking, of course you hear the that's a horrible Sans impression, but you know, it's like something like that, you know. And there's nothing like this in this game. There's no like squiggly lines like or squiggly sounds like in the Paper Mario series or anything like that. It's just silent. It took me a bit to get used to, but I'm already pretty much getting used to it. I like the action commands. I like how you can pretty much dodge almost every enemy attack. Not every single one of them, but most enemy attacks are dodgeable, and I like that. I'm not always the biggest fan of RPGs that just kind of force you to take damage. And I can't really rank this one yet because I'm still playing it, but I think I'm gonna predict now that I've had more time with it. You know what? Maybe I'll put it like between between Metroid Prime and Kirby Deluxe. It could easily go up. It's probably not going to beat Wonder, but it could beat Return to Dreamland Deluxe. But for now, I think I'm going to tentatively put it there, and I'll probably do like a small update at some point where I say where it definitively lands. And this is basically to say that so far, I think it's pretty much on par with both of those games, because I already said those games are pretty close. And so I guess Mario RPG is currently the little bridge between that gap. That could easily change. Even Mario Wonder, I still feel weird putting it in 4th place, but I don't know. I just really love Future Redeemed. So this is my tentative list for now, and we will see if it changes later. Alright, we're now a few weeks past the last videos. I have beaten Mario RPG. I decided to just delay this video until I beat it. And yeah, I'm just going to keep it pretty much exactly where it is between Metroid Prime and Kirby's Return to Dreamland. So first off, about the thing with like text not having audio, Yeah, you get used to it pretty quickly. Most characters talking in normal dialogue isn't weird. The only thing that really you never quite get used to that just feels weird is some bosses have intro cutscenes and those still don't have any noise to them, like even when there clearly should be, so that's a bit odd, but it's, you know, nothing game breaking, of course. The only additional complaint I have to add is sometimes there are hidden blocks or other like hidden items that you just don't really get much of a hint for. Like you can use a signal ring to tell you a hidden block is in an area, but then you kind of just have to jump around everywhere to find it. It's a bit tedious, but really those are not too bad. The ones that are really annoying are like, there are a few secrets that I just don't know how you would possibly figure them out. Like there's one spot where you have to literally walk, like just try to walk off of a platform onto what appears to be just open air and just walk on nothing to find a secret. And it's like, I don't know how you're expected to figure that stuff out without any sort of a guide or anything. I try not to use guides for the games, but there are a few things I had to look up in this one because they didn't really, as far as I can tell, they didn't really add anything to make those puzzles more intuitive in the modern age, and you're just kind of left with classic SNES figure out this puzzle that we don't hint at whatsoever design. But even then, there's not a lot of that. And I'm also impressed there's a lot of like modern RPG stuff that I wasn't expecting to see here. Now, I don't know what's changed from the original, what's brand new and added for quality of life stuff, or if this stuff was all in the original. I'm pretty sure triple moves are a brand new thing, and that's pretty cool. Like, depending on who your 3 party members are, you get different effects. Like, Mallow, Gino, and Mario will just attack, you know, send out one really strong attack against one enemy, but then Mallow, Peach, and Mario, they'll heal everyone fully, including revived down allies. So deciding who you want in your party at what point is part of the strategy, I should say. And, you know, trying to plan for who you're going to use the triple move for. Like, do you want to focus on healing? Do you want to focus on protecting? Or do you want to focus on attacking? And if you're going to attack, are you trying to attack one enemy more? Or are you wanting to attack everybody for a bit less damage? What I was really surprised to see was party EXP. When you win a battle, everyone gets XP. It isn't just the people in your party. Thankfully, I don't like it when RPGs make you level up every single character individually. And also, there's mid-battle character switching. Mario, you are locked with at all times, but then the other 2 characters, at any point you can switch between them. And aside from sometimes there are like special effects that will prevent you from doing that. But yeah, other than that, like, you don't have to worry about who you're going into a battle with so much as, you know, just like, who do I want to start the battle with, because you can always switch it out. In fact, there are battles in this game, specifically at least one in the post game, that seems to expect you to be switching out partners and to have backup partners ready for when you're forced to switch. And yes, I did do all the post game bosses. Most of them are, I mean, they're a pretty decent challenge, I must say. I wasn't expecting anything in this game to be like really tough, but like, yeah, I hit max level, I hit max coins, and there's still enemies in the post game that are really difficult. Took me a few tries. I especially, there's one where you have to fight with just Mario with no items. And that one took me so many tries. And the only reason I was able to do it was because I found out about a piece of armor that you get through that one hidden secret I was talking about, where you just have to walk onto air. So, yeah. But I'd say, yeah, the story is really charming. I like all the characters. Of course, like anytime Bowser is forced to join up with Mario, it's a delight. Anytime Peach gets more character, it's an absolute delight. It's disappointing there's basically no Luigi, aside from like a few little hints at him. But other than that, I absolutely loved the story. I loved the characters. The gameplay is pretty fun. I like RPGs that allow you to avoid damage. So yeah, I mean, every game that came out this year was pretty great in some, right? And as I said, Metroid Prime and Kirby, these two were already pretty close for me, and Mario RPG is just like, I guess, the gap between them. So pretty much all three of these games are pretty close in quality to me. And even WarioWare Move It, you know, it's not to say anything bad about the game, it's just when you have all of these single player experiences, or sometimes, you know, multiplayer experiences as well in the case of these two, and kind of that one, though I never really played around with that. You know, this isn't quite on the same level of these, is all I'm trying to say. But like, yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say here is like, if this is like, and this isn't my actual, I don't like doing number scores, but just to throw out a number, if this is like a 4.5 out of 5, it's like a 4.6 and a 4.7. It's basically what I'm trying to say. They're just pretty close. And again, that doesn't represent necessarily, I'm not going to give these like my actual, here's how I would put a number to these, because that's just not something I like doing for games. But yeah, WarioWare Move It in back. Metroid Prime, pretty great. I just, I don't know, I guess I just preferred these other styles of games, and it had like a few things that I wasn't super fond of, but still pretty great game. Mario RPG, very fun, very minor complaints. Same thing with Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe. Mario Bros. Wonder, these are both great platformers. I just like Mario Bros. A bit more, have nostalgia for Mario that I don't necessarily for Kirby. And this is one of the best Mario platformers. Like, this is probably right up there with World. Might be my second favorite, genuinely. In fact, I feel like I can pretty confidently say it is, yeah. Future Redeemed is next, and I mean, it's everything I wanted in a Xenoblade 3 DLC prequel story. I like getting to see old characters and everything, and I like how they gave depth to some of 3's characters. And then Pikmin 4 absolutely shocked me with how fantastic it was. Like, one of the best games Nintendo has published, period, which is insane when I thought Pikmin 3 Deluxe was pretty good. Like, this is amazing. This is incredible. And then Tears of the Kingdom is, I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I do like the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom style, but I'm gonna do a full video on this. I am ready for some return to form to the classic formula that this game did not give me necessarily. Still my game of the year. For everything I could say negative about it, I have so much positive to say about it. So yeah, eventually, you know, by like maybe 2025, hopefully I'll have a review out on this game. And yeah, that's pretty much my list for this year. Not a single indie game or like digital or anything like that, unless, I mean, I guess you can count Future Redeemed. Okay, so there's Future Redeemed, but like other than that, it's all physical games. No small indie things or anything like that. It's all pretty much big main single player or multiplayer adventures. It was just kind of a packed year, and I did not have time. Especially, this game is so long that it just, of course, I wasn't going to have time for much more than that. So yeah, that's my 2023 list. Thank you for watching.